Hello there, good morning everyone. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
It's an absolutely beautiful Thursday morning. It's cool here in Lagos. I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
As always, we're grateful for clement weather here in Lagos and I believe across other parts of the country. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
We'll need to speak to the weatherman about that, Bukola. But here in Abuja, it's drizzling. You know that kind of drizzle you don't want to touch your body because it's really, really cold. But I hope that you're settling in with a cup of tea or coffee or something. Good morning. I'm Maupe Ogunyusu from the Federal Capital Territory.
Yeah, and speaking about the Federal Capital Territory, what a day it was yesterday. Quite a number of scenarios. I mean, the call to bar ceremony eventually held, successfully. They did their thing. And then the protests with Labour, the converging at the Unity Fountain, moving on to the National Assembly. And then, who would have known? Look at then in the National Assembly, two things, even in the House of Reps and in the Senate. I mean, the big news in the Senate when the senators staged our walkout asking that the president go or face impeachment in, 6 weeks? I think they're even going on recess at the moment.
Yes, summer recess.
So they'll do that and then go through. They have a way of doing some of these things when they're just about to go for issues like this. So this happened yesterday and of course, got a lot of tongues wagging. Perhaps we'll take a look at the response from the government eventually. Don't forget, the Minister of Information spoke about it. Then there was a statement. I think that statement from Gabasho, did I see something about babyish attitude of the senators? Whoa.
Oh, Mr. Femi also spoke about it.
About that?
Yes.
So there you go.
It's a waste of time.
Wow. And then as though that wasn't enough, in the House of Reps, they also had some interesting conversations, one of which was about remember the controversial Section 115? They thought, how could the rec from Akwa Ibom, they said he erroneously quoted it, and it's causing hoopla across the country, and it's got the potential of starting up, I think they describe it as a frivolous litigation, unnecessary litigation. You wonder, how did they come to that kind of conclusion? You thought that the courts can entertain any matter and then they're capable to rule on all of those matters without anyone's, public opinion. I think they say that what happens in the court of public opinion doesn't necessarily sway how the judges or how judgments go, as long as the judges rule based on what is presented to them. But just to note that they're noting Section 115 whichever way. So, what a scenario.
Well, I think 115 is quite tricky, really. Even reading it sometimes, you're wondering, so how does this tie back to what? And, it raises questions about just that process of making the bill into an act. I know we've talked about just how, the reps and those in the Senate, especially lawmakers, may have overlooked some things. Some thought it was even a booby trap for them. Imagine setting a booby trap for yourself. Some thought, well, that's how democracy should be. You shouldn't make laws to favor yourself alone. You should make laws for the future to better democracy and all of that. So, yes, Section 115 has been quite tricky, and I think that's where the courts maybe come in. So whether or not the cases will be frivolous, the court will decide. Yeah, we'll say, well, this is a waste of time, all right, strike it out. Or we need to look at this. So I think that's why we have a court, to look at those issues.
Which is something we'll eventually look into anyways. But don't forget the water bill. Yeah, go ahead.
And I imagine if Section 115 didn't threaten the position, of lawmakers or politicians across offices, would there be any hue and cry about it?
Many think it doesn't threaten it. That's its problem. There's a different interpretation to it. Some think, no, it doesn't threaten anything. Others think, well, look,
because of the clause that if you signed 2 nomination forms for different elective offices, you stand the risk of, being sentenced to 2 years imprisonment. As a candidate.
Yeah,
that's why you need a court system.
That's the thing. That's where the issue is.
Perhaps because, it wasn't fully understood, and then the INEC National Commissioner on Sunrise Daily just 2 days ago cleared the air, but it depends on whether or not other lawyers agree with him.
That's
another matter.
That will never happen. Really.
So
he said that it has to do with domestic politics at the party level, not necessarily at the election proper. So
but how do you guys see this?
All of it.
Yeah, don't forget the water bill, the controversial water bill. Nigerian Governors Forum have eventually spoken up about it. You do remember that the honourable gentleman who moved the motion in the House says, well, he did consult. He says, if the bill, if people don't like it, if it's not accepted on the floor of the House or National Assembly, he will step it down. But the Governors Forum, they say that the reintroduction of that National Water Resources Bill does not adequately address the interest of the states. So they released that communique after they had the teleconference. And the governors noted that the bill is inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Part of that communique, they call for a review of that document with a view to accommodating the concerns of all the states. Now, these are the highlights of some of the other items that the governors from spoke about. They received presentations from the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Dr. Muhammad Mahmoud Abubakar, on the livestock productivity and resilience support project, and unanimously decided to spearhead the program in their states.
Quite a number of resolutions, really, from the NGF meeting, and that's a breakdown of the Ukraine war. Petrol subsidy, by the way, made its way to that meeting, NNPC's transition and all. But, you know, the Water Resources Bill, I find it quite interesting that the governors actually agreed that it is inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And for me, that was the major red flag. I know there's been the debate, and as usual, you have debates, those for and those against. But for the governors to come out and say, you know what, yes, it doesn't capture the interest. You know, interest is one thing, right? I mean, it varies from people to people, states to state. But then the Constitution is the ground is certain. And for them to have said that it is inconsistent, then you start wondering, what is the point exactly?
In the words of the President of the Senate yesterday, it looks as if it is going to fall flat on its face.
Well, we can't quite tell.
If it's inconsistent with the law.
But the distrust as far as the Water Resources Bill is concerned, because, you know, some aspects say that states would have to cede part of their land that run across, you know, the waterways and the rivers to the federal government. You know, but if you consider the unrest that has, you know, stemmed from the access to water and access to agricultural resources in recent times, i.e. farmer-herders clashes, then you would understand the need for some form of regulation of, you know, waterways and all of that. And then was it the Minister of Water Resources that was saying last week that it's a lack of understanding that is causing the needless hue and cry, if you would permit me to use that word, about the Water Resources Bill, that River Niger and River Benue draw their sources from different parts of the country. And what happens if some, you know, other parts of the country decide to dam, you know, those rivers? And then what happens to those who need to use that those waterways? You know, but then again, there needs to be some kind of understanding about the Water Resources Bill so that all those who have access to it would come to a round table and be able to proceed. What is more important is for Nigerians to have potable water, you know, so the conflict is needless, if you ask me.
Really? Okay. Okay.
Well, you know, sometimes it's about perception. Perception oftentimes is equal to reality. Just 2 weeks ago, I had a conversation with Honorable Mark Bila about what his reservations were, because don't forget that Honorable Sada Soli, I think he's from Katsina State, was the one who moved the motion. And this is not the first time that the Water Resources Bill had been kicked out. I mean, it was kicked out in the 8th Assembly, brought in the 9th Assembly, caused a lot of controversy, and I think it was stepped down. This time around, when it was reintroduced, the honourable member who introduced it, Honourable Sada Soli, told the Speaker, or the Speaker told members of the National Assembly of the House that Honourable Sada Soli says he's engaged with the governors, and that if that were not to be the case, if he doesn't have the buy-in or the support of the governors, that he would respectfully withdraw the bill. And Honorable Sada Soli got up in the National Assembly that day to corroborate what the Speaker had said, because immediately it was reintroduced, Honorable, I'm trying to remember his name, I called his name a few moments ago, had raised objections to that particular bill. So I had a conversation with him as to what his reservations were about the bill, because don't forget that he is from Benue State, and he had had what's the name? We had reservations about how that was going to affect these people, especially that part which you raised about, you know, reserving a certain portion of the embankment, I think about 3 kilometers on either side of the river or waterway for the federal government, ceding it to the federal government. Governors had argued in the past that it was inconsistent with the Land Use Act. So you know, that conversation is still ongoing. In this new water resources bill, it does seem that there is an act of good faith, because according to what Honorable Mark Bila told me, he said that Honorable Sadasoli was even the one who sent him a copy of the newly reintroduced bill, and that certain provisions which had caused offense in the past were not there. But I think the fundamental is what they are arguing on. Part of the argument is that there is too much government, there's too much federal government in everything, and that there needs to be there are certain areas that have already been taken care of in the Constitution with regards to water, and how states are not allowed to dam, for instance. You cannot just dam willy-nilly, and that has already been taken care of. And he thinks that it's also because a lot of states have also left this critical aspect of our resources, you know, and have not paid it any attention. Might be the reason why the federal government thinks that it needs to bring in some regulation. But states are not they're not following that, because they think that, you know, government will be too far away, and they need to regulate what is happening within their own domain. Well, let us see how these conversations eventually go, how they're able to achieve a compromise, because the words of the members of the Nigerian Governors Forum are quite instructive. They're not saying kick out the bill. They're saying that it needs to be harmonized. They're still pointing out areas that are not, you know, consistent with the Constitution. So it does look like there is a dialogue ongoing. I'm hoping that perception, you know, I'm hoping that more reality, the reality of the people of Nigeria, and maybe how these things will work in reality would be the guiding light, and how we should preserve our water resources, not just for us, but also for generations yet unborn, in a way that you know, they can use it in a fair and equitable manner, will be the guiding light. And not sentiments are important, yes, and perception sometimes are important, but in a way that all of us can see that justice has been done with regards to this bill, and would have been seen to be done by all. Ladies and gentlemen.
To be easy, because there's been suspicion in the first place about this bill. Don't forget, you said it's been kicked out before. And then this government had tried to amend the Land Use Act in different ways. And then this is coming up. And now the governor's forum is saying, look, it's inconsistent with that particular law section of the Nigerian Constitution. So how are they going to place? And besides, what is broke? What do we want to fix? What has been happening to those areas that the minister says what will happen to them now? So I guess we'll see.
It's not broken, don't fix it.
I guess we'll wait and see what happens. Remember what they even tell us in politics. What? Minority will have their say, majority
will have their way.
Will the same thing play out with this bill? We'll see. We'll take a look at the dailies. Let's just jump right in right away, guys. We'll start with Nigerian Tribune this morning. Insecurity. Senators stage walkout saying Buhari must go. Give him 6 weeks to solve insecurity problems or face impeachment. Well, about the 6 weeks. The government has been in power for how long? 7 years. Can they do this in 6 weeks if it's not been done in 7 years? Just thinking. Reps to consider his impeachment ascribed to minority leader. Lawmakers lack capacity to effect threats. Yakasai Okorie. What happened today is just bravado presidency. So the borders in court of the Senate also stage a walkout now. Put your money where your mouth is, they say. That's what all of this amounts to. But while at that, remember the aviation sector, all the stories you hear about, oh dear, what's going to happen? Are we going on the cliffhanger? Look at this story. FG approves 3 Airbus Boeing aircraft for Nigeria Air takeoff. So, connect the dots. That's Tribune this morning.
Ah, goodness. Take a look at the Guardian newspaper. Leads with a similar story. Insecurity. Senators chant Buhari must go. To give president impeachment notice after 6-week ultimatum. Don't forget that they've gone on recess, summer recess. A host of other riders. Opposition senators stage walkout and the response from that. But let me take this rider. FCTA directs Abuja private schools closure. Right?
Cool.
Yeah.
Private
NYC.
schools too, but public and private now.
Education as a whole. I mean, tertiary institutions, even some private tertiary institutions in Abuja. Then now public institutions, the secondary schools and all of that. Now private schools closure. You see NYC begs army for deployment of soldiers to orientation camps.
Remember the call to bar ceremony yesterday had to hold at the secretariat of the body of benches, not the Nigerian Law School, because of the security concern.
Oh yeah. Connect those dots again. And I think it's important to actually ask questions, not just of the president, even the lawmakers themselves. I mean, they've had opportunities to do something. They have the oversight functions. They have powers, as it were, in the Constitution. But, I mean, it appears as though everybody says, no, it's only the president that has power. But it looks like the Senate has power now in terms of impeachment. So who really has the power? Big question. Senate summons CBN governor as Naira breaks 700 Naira ceiling. Usually when you break the ceiling, it's meant to be something good, right? Breaking the glass ceiling for women.
The building will fall on you. Break the ceiling.
In fact, the Tribune says that they fear dollar may exchange for 1,000 Naira by year end.
And I think that's been the infamous goal or target for a lot of people.
So what's happening to all the policies? How much was it 7 years ago? How much did they exchange for? How much did they exchange now?
You'll be good to hear, the government or people who spoke at that time to speak now, perhaps in the same vein.
Absolutely.
Saying, okay, we condemned it then, we're condemning it now, whether we are in government or not.
History doesn't forget.
Absolutely. And you see, INEC recovers voter cards found in Bielsa Forest. So we're still waiting on INEC to give the update on the ones that were excavated or exhumed. Now, another one, page 27. A couple of other stories on the front page, but we'll leave it there for the Guardian.
And from there, let's flip to New Telegraph this morning. New Telegraph leads with the same big story from the FCT. Insecurity. Senators give Buhari 6 weeks to end terrorism or face impeachment. The riders provide more insight. Storm out of plenary as Lawan refuses to raise matter in the chamber. Security agencies must do more to stop terrorists. That's according to the Senate President. 6-week ultimatum, too long. Nigeria facing domestic terrorism. That's attributed to Owosheni. And lastly, from the riders, account for $1 billion state security funds under your watch. What Tom tells Buhari. That's a big one there. And we wonder what the presidency would have to say about that. Just a few more stories before we exit the New Telegraph. Monies from, that's beneath the big picture on the front page, monies, that varsity strike, monies from APC, PDP forms can address ASU's demands. That's attributed to the NLC. And we've been doing some calculation on Sunrise Daily about how much all of that 100 billion naira would amount to. Well, do you agree, Kayode, that perhaps that...
I'm not
You
part
stick
of
to
the
the Fifth Amendment this morning.
I'm not part of the negotiators.
Okay, let's look above the nameplate. FEC eyes 280.7 trillion naira growth for Nigeria's economy. Earmarks 707.96 for Air Nigeria. It's good to know that at least in some respects, the government is still on the right path. That's the New Telegraph this morning. Bakwe.
I have leadership for you, but just to also mention, I think about the Nigerian Law School will tell us why it was that they chose the venue that they chose. I know that, usually the law school graduation, or the call to bar, beg your pardon, usually happens sometimes in town. Last year, it was at the Eagle Square. Before that, they've held it at the International Conference Center. So oftentimes, because don't also forget that this comes with a lot of fanfare, celebration. People will be, usually they've set up their tents and their camps outside with coolers and coolers of food, and the photographers are having a field day. But I think it will be up to the Nigerian Law School to tell us whether, those were also part of their concerns, just to also add that there. But let's take a look at what leadership has on its front page for us this morning. And you can see this: rising insecurity, frightened senators tell PMB to sit up or face impeachment. Give president 6 weeks to end insecurity. It's belated attempt by lawmakers, that's according to PANDEF and CSOs. We're working to bring situation under control, that's according to federal government. Lawmakers' action just bravado. Call for anarchy, that's according to the presidency. Nasarawa government shuts schools over security threats. So that story, or those stories, are on page 4 of the paper for you. You also see there, it's interesting how the leadership captures it. Frightened senators, so they had to get to the situation of fright. They can tell us if they themselves were frightened before they eventually decided to, get to this point. You also find there the protest which happened right here in the Federal Capital Territory yesterday. The NLC going to the National Assembly and taking the march to the heart of the Federal Capital Territory. Look at this one. Federal government OK's 2023 to 2024 MTEF projects 225 trillion naira GDP economy by 2025. Naira falls to 710 naira to the dollar as speculators spike demand. Gunboat kills 4 policemen, 2 pipeline surveillance workers in Bayelsa. That is also right there on page 9 of the paper. Governors reject water resources bill, say it violates constitution. So it looks like their reservation is still clearly spelled out somewhere inside the paper for you. And ADC's Kachiku unveils Buhari as running mate. You might want to know which of the Buharis he's unveiling. Page 8 will give you details. And if you want to see some more action, maybe something to uplift you and lift your spirits, Commonwealth Games begin today. Amushan Brume to defend crowns. So it's right there for you. Some more sporting action. Details on page 30 of Leadership newspapers. Let's leave it there for the paper.
All right, take a look at Vanguard newspaper next. Tension grips Abuja environs over rising insecurity. Guys, you need to listen because of this first rider, if you can make sense of it. It says, Abuja varsity shot as terrorists demand ransom on 500 law school students, DG, 15 lecturers ahead of attack. I know, that's the same reaction I got when I read it.
Like an advance payment or
I don't understand it. I just don't, so.
It sounds like it's just toying with the whole nation. The modus operandi, it sounds...
They make it look as if they're playing computer game with this country. PS6 now.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, boy. Students desert campus, plead to be relocated to PH campus. Senators give Buhari 6 weeks to resolve problem or face impeachment. Senators will threaten to impeach Buhari on minority of minorities presidency, as they are confused. Attack on presidential guards. He was only son, says sister of captain killed. So that's a sad part of that. And then look at that beneath the at the bottom strip there. Governors reject proposed national water resources bill. This is point blank, front page, bottom strip here. But I've got to read Mr. and Mrs. as I leave the Vanguard. Mrs., just telling Mr., are you giving me the money or not? What's all this shakara about? Or Mr. with arms in his pocket, you know, some sort of a grin, saying, call it what you want, but you have to be patient when you're talking to a rich man. There you go.
Yeah.
That's Vanguard today.
That's a nugget for today's Thursday. A quotable quote. But be careful when you...
Mr. is courting strike there, Chimilin.
Strike.
And I'm looking forward to what tomorrow's edition will look and sound like.
Just something to, to make you laugh. Take a look at Daily Times newspaper, and it's really back to the hard talk, the serious talk, the reality. Terrorist threats to kidnap Buhari, laughable. That's coming from the federal government, says government working to address insecurity. I wouldn't be surprised if Buhari is kidnapped, says Buba Galadima. So this is not going away, clearly. A couple of other stories, really, but hey, pick up a copy of the Daily Times.
And you also, you might want to also pick up a copy of the News Direct this morning. It has a host of stories. But let's begin with the big story on the front page of News Direct. Insecurity, APC, PDP senators battle over Buhari's impeachment threat. Well, this one would interest you just before we exit the Nigerian News Direct. Nigeria Air Force receives new boost as Buhari approves aircraft lease for national carrier. The question is, what difference would he make to the fight against insecurity? It's the same story we heard about the Super Tucano aircrafts, that they would be the game changer as far as the battle against insecurity is concerned. But yeah, we're still here where we are.
So this is for national carrier. Then I see Nigeria Air Force. And then, but you know what? You need to read the story.
And watch the space. Yeah. That ends it. We'll look at some of the dailies here today. But don't go away. Okay, well, we can get a cup of tea or coffee. We will be right back ourselves. Join us again.
Nigerian workers standing their ground at the National Assembly premises, demanding that President Buhari should end the ongoing strike by university lecturers in the country. In the Senate chamber, senators cocooned themselves behind closed doors in an executive session. The closed-door session ends 2 hours later, and the minority leader moves a point of order, reminding the Senate president of the decision taken during the executive session.
We had discussed the issues as they relate to security in the country and all the issues around it. And we had also discussed that we're going to come back to plenary to discuss the efforts that have been made so far on the issues of security in the country. After which we will give an ultimatum to the president that he resolves this issue, otherwise we give an impeachment notice. And as such...
Minority Leader, when you are going to come under your point of order, first, you are supposed to cite the order. Second, you are supposed to discuss with me what you are going to discuss. You didn't. Thirdly, I read the progress report. Thirdly, when I read it, when some of our colleagues were still not listening. Thirdly, we have already passed that stage. Look at where we are today. So, just hold on, please. So, at this moment, that point of order, I don't know what it is, but falls flat on its face.
Displeased with the response of the Senate president, lawmakers from opposition parties stage a walkout. They assemble at the press center to brief journalists, making their demands clear.
The Senate had at various levels, at various times, convened various security meetings, various security issues were discussed, and we did recommend to government various steps and measures aimed at curbing these issues of insecurity. We realized that even Abuja that we are in is no longer no more safe, and all of you will agree with us. And so at the closed session we agreed that we will give the president an ultimatum that failing which, if it is not complied with, will move immediately to give an impeachment notice. And this we agreed at the executive session, at closed door session. So when we came out of the closed door session, we expected that the Senate President will brief the public on the issues that have happened, but however, that did not happen.
How soon will you formalize your impeachment threat against the president?
Well, we have given 2 months notice within which 6 weeks, within 6 weeks precisely, within which these security issues should really be resolved. Even if it is, all our resolutions should also be implemented.
However, it appears that the ultimatum to President Buhari is not supported by only lawmakers from opposition parties.
I think it would be wrong to say the opposition. It was a collective decision to give ultimatum. It was not opposition.
The Senate has proceeded on its annual summer holiday to resume on September 20th, meaning the 6-week ultimatum will elapse while the National Assembly is on recess. According to Section 143 of the 1999 Constitution, 1/3 of lawmakers in each chamber is required to sign a notice of allegation in writing to begin the impeachment process against the president, and 2/3 majority of lawmakers in each chamber is required to move a motion that the allegation necessitating impeachment be investigated. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
Welcome back. So quite a number of issues to discuss this morning, but yes, we'll start with what transpired in the Senate yesterday. And as you've seen there, we've got Mr. Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, joining us today. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, that walkout has been described in different ways by different persons in the executive arm of government. But you had a protest before that day, and you almost had a similar narrative in terms of what was expected of the president. What do you think of this 6 weeks ultimatum to the president now over the same insecurity matter?
The ultimatum is not realistic, and it's not a reflection of the gravity of the crisis, the security crisis in the country. I had thought you should have given the president a 7-day ultimatum.
Will 7 days be realistic?
Because within 6 weeks, there may really be no National Assembly complex to return to. Schools have been closed down. Yesterday, we had a call to the birth ceremony. The venue has to change, and parents were asked not to, turn up because of the seriousness of the situation. So I had expected the Senate or the National Assembly members to take this matter very, very seriously. But I can understand. They are going on vacation for the next 6 weeks. But you can't talk of a holiday or a vacation when your house is on fire. And that is the situation in Nigeria today. That is the situation in Nigeria today. And from what you could see, the protest yesterday transcends political affiliations. And, you know, it's a general crisis. And it shouldn't be seen by the presidency as an attempt by the opposition to embarrass. I mean, if members of the advanced team of the president are attacked and killed, and members of the presidential guard are killed, it is a serious crisis. And the criminal elements are threatening. I mean, can you imagine the temerity to threaten that they're going to kidnap the president of the country? So it's not enough to say, oh, this is laughable. What are we doing? What is the government doing to allay the fears of Nigerians? For instance, I was traveling to Abuja last week. And quite a number of colleagues, members of my family, you know, were wondering, what is so urgent that you are going to Abuja? Please be careful in Abuja. You only say that in a war situation. And if care is not taken, if we continue with the lackadaisical attitude of the political class, we're going to be in trouble. You can't talk of elections next year if the situation is not arrested, and not gently too. The economy is in crisis. Where are you going to get money? From what we are being told by the central bank now, where are you going to mobilize the fund, even to acquire weapons? So it is a very serious crisis that requires an emergency session of the National Assembly.
But is it really feasible to impeach the president? By the way, you said the political class, but this latest move, do you think it is actually feasible to go the whole hog to impeach the president?
You see, by virtue of Section 14, subsection 2, subsection 2 of the Constitution, the welfare and security of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. Once the welfare of our people has been sacrificed, security is under serious threat. In fact, the National Assembly has been slow, extremely slow.
What more could they have done?
In setting an engine in motion for impeachment.
And with Chamberlain, with regards to impeachment, will the National Assembly be able to pull off what it takes, you know, to get senators and lawmakers at the lower chamber across party lines to impeach the president?
Because everybody is under threat. You listen to them on a regular basis, including APC senators, APC members of the House of Representatives. Many of them are saying they cannot go home because their homes, their states have been taken over by terrorists. So it cuts across party lines. And the crisis in the country is a national one. And, you know, the authorities will have to go back to the drawing table. Because we can't go on reading press statement by the presidency when Nigerians are kidnapped, or when terrorists are asking family members of abducted people to pay ransom to the tune of 100 million per person. You can't do that when there is a government in place. The payment of ransom openly, it is a confirmation of the near collapse of the government. And there should be no sentiment here. We should all be worried as a people that we never went so low. Even during the Civil War, there were areas that were well secured. But today, recently we saw the attacks on military institutions in Kaduna. And that is a fortress.
You know,
Kaduna State hosts the largest military institutions in the country.
But
the place has been conquered by terrorists. Now they have moved to Abuja.
If you look at, pardon me to jump in, if you look at how the senators went about it in the Senate, for those who thought, well, if they actually meant this, and if it was not for the optics, the president of the Senate just said there that, look, you understand the process of presenting a matter such as this one.
For sure.
But they went about it the wrong way. That's why he said, from his perspective, that he fell flat on his face, that they had passed that stage, they didn't go through the emotions and the bills. And so, on that basis alone, it was thrown out. And then they staged the walkout.
No, I want to believe that the senators who were calling for impeachment were merely warning the government. Frankly speaking, I don't think they meant it. Because what is required, and they have the number, to sign the impeachment notice. So it's not just about walking out or protesting. You have to do the right thing. But like I said, I believe they are merely warning.
So is it that they want to show their constituency that, well, we seem to be doing something?
Yeah. So hence we are talking about of 6 weeks ultimatum.
So can they pull it off? If push comes to shove.
I seriously believe we are in a serious crisis situation. And I do hope the presidency or the government will have to save the country from imminent collapse. We are moving inexorably to a precipice. There's no way you can just be issuing press statements, meaningless press statements, empty press statements, which they have become in the face of the crisis of insecurity. And I'm talking of physical insecurity. There is food insecurity in the country. There is social insecurity in the country. So it requires the meetings of all agencies of the government to address this monumental security crisis.
And this touches at the very heart of an issue that Nigerians face every day, not just in Abuja, not just in Kaduna, across the board. But just how much difference would possible impeachment of the president make? Because don't forget, and I think you have responded to the statement by the president or the president's aide saying he has done all that is at least he can do, and even more in terms of moral equipment.
It simply means I am tired.
So
and the president has said he's anxious to go back home.
So what do you think a new president will do? Don't forget you've talked about how we have, paucity of funds, the dollar to naira exchange rate. So in the present situation, what can a change of power, a change of president achieve?
For me, I don't think this crisis should be narrowed down to the president. We're talking of a system.
So it's bigger than the president?
It's bigger than the president. You're talking of a system. But apparently there's no coordination. Take the National Assembly, for instance. Money is appropriated. Huge sums of money appropriated for security in the country. Does anybody monitor the disbursement of the fund? Yet, you also read stories about generals, making away with hundreds, if not billions of naira. And nobody is taking them to task. I defend soldiers, and they complain to me that we're ready to fight. We're ready to defend the territorial integrity of our country. But we're not armed. The weapons are not there. The equipment is not there. So, does the National Assembly follow up? So it's not enough to say, oh, we have made fund, we provided sufficient fund. And when the presidency says, we've done all that we can, but it means our efforts are not enough. So what do you do in this circumstance?
But in this circumstance too, given the challenge we have with insecurity, in that protest, you said, well, if something is not done, they risk an NSAS-like kind of situation. And then we had a guest yesterday who advised, to you particularly, saying he doesn't think that you should go that route, because if you do, these people will take advantage of it, given the situation that we're in, and it may likely come up worse than expected. Is this something you think?
No, you see, what I was saying was that if care is not taken, if what has become inevitable chaos is not halted, that what may happen to the country may be worse than the NSAS protest. I was not calling for an NSAS protest, but it is the business of the ruling class to prevent the collapse of the country. It's not about me. And I mean, I'm a lawyer. I want to go to court, practice law, right? But you cannot practice law in an atmosphere of insecurity. So that is the issue. It is for the government. It's not, you shouldn't advise me. You should be advising the government. Don't create an atmosphere of chaos that can lead to protests. I mean, we have protests in the past 2 days in the country, organized by the Nigerian Labour Congress. No window was smashed. No door was broken. And that is what we have been advocating for. Allow Nigerians to express themselves peacefully, follow the provisions of the law, particularly Section 83, subsection 4 of the Police Act 2020, that during protest, the police shall provide security. And that was what was done in the last 2 days. And I want to commend the Inspector General of Police for the approach. And it means we're civilized. We're getting there in that area of our nation.
But you know, when you then speak about the system, because I mean, you look at what's going on and you expect concerted efforts from different parts of the system, the federation, the states, the government, and that doesn't seem to be the case. Why is that failure?
No, you see, when I talk of lack of coordination, frankly speaking, there's so much attention paid to Abuja, whereas the governors are the chief security officers in their states. Security vote or security votes running to billions of naira are earmarked for the security of our people. In every state in Nigeria, there is a state security council headed by the governor. All the military, heads of military institutions, police, state security service, all of them are members. And the governors are required, as each of them, as a chair of the committees, to give instructions and provide adequate fund to secure the people in the city. But every time we're talking about security, it's all about Abuja.
We raised this part too yesterday.
It's all about Abuja.
Yeah, we raised this matter too yesterday with Professor Dinkalo, and he thought, no, that's not correct. There's nothing the state governors can do.
No.
They are just CSOs on paper.
No. Unlike the armed forces, headed by the president as the commander-in-chief of the president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. The president is not the commander-in-chief of the police force.
So can a governor give a commissioner, for example, an order?
Oh yes, there is the Nigerian Police Council. The president is only the chairman. The 36 state governors are members. And of course, in addition, the Inspector General of Police and the chairman of the Police Council. So in that body of 39 members, 36 of them are state governors, but the body never meets. I have a case in court. Thou shalt meet regularly. Requisition a meeting or meetings to discuss and review the security situation in the country on a regular. No, just a minute. Based on that case in court, the National Assembly included, I think, Section 6 of the Nigerian Police Act 2020. This body shall meet, the Nigerian Police Council, not less than twice a year. I can also meet in emergency situations. But that law was enacted That law came into force in September 2020. That body has never met. So the governors are required to requisition the meetings of that body on a regular basis. It's a constitutional body established pursuant to section 153 of the Constitution. And you are talking about instructions. Of course, it's put in the Constitution, that, if there is a problem, the Commissioner of Police may refer to Abuja. And since 1999, I've never heard of a situation where a governor gives an instruction that there is some disturbance in Ikorodu, say Lagos for instance, by Bado boys or whatever you call them, or the 1 million march, 1 million boys. So they are causing problems. So, Commissioner of Police, please go there. I've never heard of a situation where the Commissioner of Police says no. But I can tell you in the case of Lagos.
Exactly. Because
and in many other states.
The fact that you've never heard does not mean that is not the case.
No, in the case of,
parts.
I think in 2006, when Dr. Chris Ngigi, right, was governor of Anambra State before he was removed by the courts, the Commissioner of Police, with the connivance of the presidential villa then, under President Obasanjo, instigated the Commissioner of Police in that state not to carry out the instructions of the governor. The governor went to court, and the Supreme Court, in the case of AG Anambra State and AG of the Federation, ruled that the governor of a state is in charge of security in that state, and the Commissioner of Police shall comply with all lawful directives of the governor. The only area where a Commissioner of Police may be permitted by law to say, sorry, and I've seen it. If a governor suddenly says, go and arrest my opponent, that has nothing to do with the security of the state, of the country. The Commissioner of Police may rightfully say, please, you better direct your instructions, to Abuja. I'm not going to do that. But to say you are not going to combat crimes in a state, the governor has the right to ask for the removal of the Commissioner of Police. And if it's not removed, you go to court.
Well, Mr. Falana, why do you think this body does not meet regularly?
I think it's part of the carryover from the military. It's part of the dangerous legacies of the military, whereby the president is seen as the chief security officer of the country. And therefore, everybody must kowtow to the presidency. But we have repeatedly maintained that governors must share police powers with the president. That is the provision of the Constitution. In fact, by virtue of section 216 of that Constitution, an Inspector General of Police cannot be appointed or removed without
the advice of the Police Council. Yes,
the president must consult the Police Council. But what has happened in Nigeria? An Inspector General of Police is appointed or removed, and the governors read about it on the pages of newspapers, like all of us. It shouldn't be so. And that has been the practice since 1999. So if we are talking about security of Nigeria now, we must take advantage of the provisions of the Constitution. That, Mr. President, your police powers cannot be exclusively exercised by you alone. If we are going to, take for instance, the authorities in Abuja decide how many police personnel should man every state. No. This has to be discussed by that council. Because the council under the Constitution shall administer, organize, and supervise the Nigerian police force.
So can a governor call for that meeting if the president doesn't call for the meeting?
Oh, for sure.
For
sure.
And an option to that, Mr. Falana, will be the National Security Council, but then the governors are not part of the National Security Council.
That's military, you know, the armed forces, I mean, service chiefs, you know, the president, vice president are members. That's why I say the president, under section 218 of the Constitution, is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. And my sister, as far as the Constitution is concerned, section 217, the military shall not be involved in the internal security of Nigeria unless there is an insurrection. But what has happened? The armed forces have taken over, have usurped the functions of the Nigerian police force.
Well, some will say it was really just expedient because of the challenges we were facing.
No!
And for the governor and the commissioners.
No, because the police is neglected. Everything we are talking about security now. So how do you get more money for the armed forces? Not the police that is in charge of internal security in our country.
But I think the police gets fair share of the funding as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen them commissioning equipment and all of that.
When there is a total breakdown of law and order in the state, if you fund the police, we don't need to bring in the army to deal with armed robbery, kidnapping, and the rest of it.
But terrorism and banditry, can the police take care of that? Because that's majority of what we're faced with now.
In most parts of the world, in most settled democracies, once you equip your police, you only bring in the military on a very rare occasion. Oh, yes. But you again, take for instance, when we're talking of security, it's all about provide more money. That's all. To arm the military. Nobody is talking of security equipment. And I've said it publicly. Lagos is the largest city that I know in the world without CCTV cameras. Abuja is the only capital of a modern state in the world without CCTV cameras.
But I think there are some CCTV cameras in parts of Lagos.
In Abuja, the contract was awarded for $470 million. We are it was a loan taken from China. We are paying the loan. Meanwhile, the money was cornered.
Mr. Falana, you have identified the challenges across board. So from the lawmakers, the governors, the president. So should we just then impeach all of them? Because clearly everybody has their own responsibility here.
And I think that is the basis of the 6-week ultimatum. It provides an opportunity for all of us to go back to the drawing table and assign responsibilities or ask people to take on and perform their duties under the Constitution and other relevant laws. That's it.
And in that regard, can the governors be invited to a National Security Council meeting if we consider that the IGP is also part of that meeting?
No, Nigerian Police Council. You don't need to involve governors in the Nigerian Security Council meetings. This is their own duty. And do you know?
But the governors are the
National Assembly
security officers of their states.
You know, the National Assembly members. No. What I'm saying is that in each of the states, there is a state security council. All the heads of security agencies operating in the state are members, and the governor is the chair. Take the National Assembly, for instance, to know where people are not performing their duties. By virtue of section 217 of the Constitution, and there are decisions of the court to this effect, that the president cannot deploy troops. He cannot deploy members of the armed forces in any part of the country without the approval of the National Assembly. Since 2015, the National Assembly has never called the president to order by drawing his attention to the provision of the Constitution and the decisions of our court. Secondly, since 2015, the president has not declared a state of emergency. Yet, Section 305 of the Constitution has imposed a duty on the president, to to declare a state of emergency when there is a breakdown of law and order in any part of the country or in the entire country. Governors are also empowered by that section, right, with the support of the House of Assembly in each of the states to request for a state of emergency. But, mind you, it does not mean when you declare a state of emergency in a state, is to empower the president to adopt extraordinary measures to restore law and order. It does not mean that you must remove the governor of the state and demolish democratic structures like President Obasanjo did when he was in power. And I think that is why people are afraid. But the point I'm making, under Section 305, the president will need the approval of the National Assembly once he declares a state of emergency. But that has never happened since 2015. So it's not about the president alone.
Okay.
Now, everybody, every agency of the government must take their duties very seriously.
We'll go to break, but we'll be back and take a look at some further clauses in the Constitution and the Electoral Act. Don't go away. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, Mr. Falana, let's get into some parts of the Electoral Act. On the floor of the House of Reps yesterday, some of them, they raised a motion about a certain bill, which had to do with the elections, the Electoral Act, BVAS, and the likes. And they also looked at the interpretation of Section 115. You know, they did say that they had different people, including Rex, quoting it wrongly. In fact, let's read it so that you can shed some light on that. So, if you look at 115D, with respect to offenses in respect of nomination, D says, I'll go again. Section 1151, a person who, then D says, signs a nomination paper or result form as a candidate in more than one constituency at the same time, then K says, signed a nomination paper consenting to be a candidate at an election, knowing that he or she is ineligible to be a candidate at that election, commits an offense, and is liable on conviction to a maximum term of imprisonment for 2 years.
No option of fine. No option of fine there. It's
So
imprisonment.
what does this mean?
No, I'm saying the court cannot say, instead of going to jail, pay 500,000 naira
So
fine.
does this appeal, how does this play out when it has to do with an aspirant and a candidate?
Now, you have to get certain things clear. That we're operating in an atmosphere of impunity of the ruling class. I mean, we're just talking about security now. On a regular basis, police commissioners in each of the states, and even the Federal Capital Territory, parade serious criminal suspects involving terrorism, kidnapping, armed robbery, and the rest of them. At the end of the parade, no attorney general contacts the commissioner of police. Can I have the case file of the people you have paraded so that we can prosecute them? So at the end of the day, the police, there's been alleged, will release some of them. Others, unquote, are wasted. And so criminality continues in the society. That is what is being introduced. Now, same sense of impunity. Before this law, because we must know where we are coming from, the Supreme Court had ruled that you cannot have double nomination. I think that was in the case of Abia State. Yes, Abia. No, Imo. Where a guy contested and lost under the APC, took part in the governorship primary, and then moved to Accord to also participate and now claim that as a man.
As a candidate?
Oh, yes.
Not as an aspirant?
No, as a candidate. You know, and the Supreme Court said no, you cannot have double nomination. Now, when you talk of an aspirant here.
Sorry, even at different times.
Of course.
You can't have
It's the
double
same
nomination.
election. The same constituency. Governorship election.
Okay.
And Supreme Court said it's illegal. Then, what the authorities have done, the National Assembly members, who are now worried because some of them are also engaged in double nomination, they are now worried. What they have done is to criminalize the practice of jumping from one party after losing in the primary to another party. Now, when you talk of a candidate, for instance, a guy contested to be president of Nigeria, took part in the primary as an aspirant. We are now told, even though the primary for the senatorial election has passed, his name is now submitted to INEC as a candidate. Yes. So it's a criminal offense.
I still don't get
And
that part.
part of it is to stop impunity and political prostitution.
So, in this case now,
Yes.
we have, for instance, the governor of Ebonyi State contested in the presidential primaries
Yes.
and lost.
And lost.
And now resorts to the senatorial election. But this time, his brother won the election. He's now trying to replace he has replaced the brother, so to speak. Is that criminal? Because
No,
the
you
clarification
see-
here, according to him, is that it was an aspirant in one and a candidate in the other.
You see, we can't debate that now because there is a judgment of a court which is valid and subsisting. And so, even if I have any opinion with respect to the sector, there is a judgment which INEC must comply with, which is binding on the governor and all authorities and persons in Nigeria. That is the law today. So, if an INEC person, official, comes here to say, we depend on our own report in Abuja, therefore we are not bound by reports of INEC in the state, I wonder, what are you talking about? There's only one INEC.
Sorry, but
There's only one INEC.
it's a general practice if you consider Akwa Ibom and you consider Yobe, the Senate president. So you can comment on it on a generic term.
No.
Does your term political prostitution apply here?
Of course. Because known to the whole world, you took part in the primary in Abuja, you lost. You then rushed to your state and claim that you're a candidate. And INEC now says you're a candidate in the senatorial election, which are be held in your absence. So again, like I said, there is already a judgment on this matter. In the case of Akwa Ibom and Yobe, the cases are in court.
But without some of those specifics, since there are judgments about that, so we can put them in context.
Yes.
Now, when you say that someone contested in a primary as an aspirant,
Yes.
well, that is over, then the person goes somewhere. Then
And say I'm now a candidate.
Then his name was submitted. There are several things that come up there, and several contexts with the Electoral Act. But how about this scenario where they say, look, if I buy a nomination form for a particular constituency to vie for that election, and that primary is done, the election holds, the election is over for that particular election, whether it's president, state, governorship, or whatever, if it's over, the life of that is over. So I can then say, if the primary of, say, House of Reps is not over, I can buy a form.
No.
If I buy that form.
No, you are required to choose one.
Wait, but
Because
it
it's
says.
also easy.
But it says here at the same time, at the
Yes.
same election.
Yes.
So if
The same 2023 election.
Yeah, but if the lawyers say, well,
It's not what the lawyer says.
But
it's what the
different
law-
offices.
yeah, for instance, now, are you saying that if I'm going to contest for maybe Senate or the presidency, and the election for that is over,
And I lost.
can I not go and say, look, that is over, and at the time I'm going for the Senate, I hadn't bought the form, so if I buy the form
There are
when
two-
the form is still being sold,
There are two issues.
yeah,
The primary to the senatorial election is over. It's over. So your name can only be smuggled in by the political party. And INEC is enjoined by the law.
No,
INEC is enjoined by the law.
okay,
There
look
are
at this.
different
How is this
timelines
smuggled
for
in?
different
Because
primaries.
yeah, two different primaries.
Different timelines for different
No, no, no.
primaries.
You see, you have chosen to go for the president. You have chosen.
Yeah.
Others have chosen to go for the Senate or House of Reps or governorship or House of Assembly. If you lose that one, you cannot say, I push you aside.
Does the law frown against
I now bribe some officials in INEC. Please, put my name.
But the question, senior advocate, is does the law frown at that?
Of course.
Because they said that now this may be trying to smuggle in a different disqualification other than what's in the Constitution. So what part of the Constitution or the Electoral Act frowns at that specifically?
Yeah. Section 84 says there shall be a primary conducted by the party, monitored by the INEC.
Right.
In these cases, mind you, the reports of INEC do not favor these guys. The reports of INEC, nobody has said, oh, these guys won the primary. No. Because there shall be a primary monitored by INEC. And the Constitution did not set out the Section 84.
Okay, but if you look at
If you look at Section 29, there are conditions.
Yeah.
If you don't meet those conditions, your name is a criminal offense to send your name.
So what about Section 33?
Right.
What does it say?
A political party shall not be allowed to change or substitute its candidate whose name has been submitted under Section 29 of this Act, except in the case of death or withdrawal by the candidate, provided that in the case of such withdrawal or death of a candidate, the political party affected shall, within 14 days of the occurrence of the event, hold a fresh primary election to produce and submit a fresh candidate to the commission for the election concerned. So the parties are saying, in this regard, even if somebody contested the election, he wins the election. If he withdraws, does all that
and
formality,
there's a procedure for withdrawal,
and fulfills the procedure for the withdrawal, can the political party now say, we'll hold a fresh primary, of which a new candidate shall be presented for that election, if they fulfill all of this?
What the court has decided is that if you have taken part in another primary, you are not qualified. It's for other members of the party. And it's in line with democratic principles.
Which court was that? Is it the one in Imo?
Federal Court in Ebonyi.
In Ebonyi. Oh, what is, but by the way, that judgment has been a bit tricky. So the judgment nullified the second primary conducted on June the 9th.
Yes.
And the court ordered for another primary.
Yes.
So that means the governor can participate in that primary as well.
No, the court has not said he should participate.
So what did the court say regarding participation?
Is that if you are well connected, with your party, right, you can smuggle in your name and you rubbish the person that emerged through a valid primary.
But what did the court say about participation in this case? Does it say the governor should not participate or conduct a fresh primary? Let everybody throw their hats in and see who emerges winner.
The court has said the governor cannot participate.
The court said that indeed.
Yes, because he has taken part in a primary. And that is the position of the court. Unless that decision is overruled by the Court of Appeal.
I've not seen that judgment, which is why I ask you. You've seen that judgment, am I right?
Yes. Yes.
So will the law need some form of amendment? Because
no.
Candidates
those who are trying to
hiding
amend
under the clause of candidates and aspirants.
No, the law is very clear.
We're still within safe zone.
The law is very clear. Those who are trying to amend now are trying to shift the goal in the middle of the game. They have discovered now that they are caught. So can we quickly amend the law? That's what they're doing.
So you're saying that the life of an election, even though one contested and ends, subsists, because at that point, wouldn't nomination forms and everything be invalid for every other person?
We're talking of the same election. It's all about 2023 general election.
But don't forget, Chamberlain, Mr. Okoye, actually, we put this question to him. And we asked, isn't only aspirants that sign nomination form. I said that actually there's a nomination form from INEC, which the candidates, now not the aspirants under the party, which the candidates will fill. So in that context, we're saying the nomination form being spoken about is the one that INEC gives for the candidates and not for the aspirants.
I'm not talking of what Mr. Okoye or anybody said. I'm talking of what the law.
But the law is clear. Candidates, nomination form.
Nomination form, right? You pay for nomination form.
No, INEC's nomination form.
No, just a minute. You pay. Now, we're not talking of general election now. We are talking of the primary of the political party. In the case of APC, but you pay 100 million.
Senior Advocate, the Act defines who an aspirant is, who a candidate is.
Yes.
An aspirant is clearly someone who's bought the form and is participating in the primary, while a candidate is the person who has won the primary.
Yes. Now, an aspirant, right? Took part in the primary in Abuja, presidential primary. His name has now been sent to INEC.
As an aspirant?
No. As the candidate of a senatorial candidate. A candidate. Not an aspirant. He says, I am the candidate, not an aspirant. So, and the law is saying, take one and allow others to participate in the democratic process. But don't use your position.
So, Senior Advocate, are you saying...
to make a mockery of the electoral process.
Are you saying that you can only participate in one election in an election year?
Of course.
Either presidential, senatorial, House of Reps.
And that is in line with democratic principles.
Two at the same time?
No. Otherwise, you do 3 and 4. If I lose Senate, I go for House of Rep. If I lose House of Rep, I go for governorship. And that will make a mockery of the letter and spirit of the law.
What do you say to those who say that? But the emphasis in that section 115 is on election and not on primaries. You see what is important? Because nomination form is given to candidates, not aspirants.
What is important is that the primaries have held, all of them. All right? Unless by some miracle. And winners have emerged. In the case of Akwa Ibom, in the case of Yobe. But the party, the APC, now sent out their name. What is required of INEC is to say, we have our report. We monitor the election, the primary. Because it's illegal under Section 29 of the Electoral Act to submit another name. So this is the report of the primary that we monitor. If you have a strange name, INEC is empowered to reject it. But don't tell me, for goodness sake, that INEC is a robot. Our hands are tied. No, the law has untied your hand.
Okay, so as we wind down.
But Section 29 is saying you must emerge from a valid primary. The Constitution, because all you are being told, we profound it there by Mr. Okoye, is about the Electoral Act.
So
the Constitution, Section 285, Section 13 and 14, empowers INEC to take a decision on the nomination or election of anybody in the country. If you are offended, you can go to court to challenge the decision of INEC, because we already have about 334 cases in courts now, pre-election matters. It is the highest in the world. You are going to have not less than 100 again, since INEC has just published the names of House of Assembly members. Now, that is not, the law set out to stop that. If INEC has said, sorry, we monitored the election in Oshodi, local government, you did not emerge the winner. Therefore, APC, we are not taking this name. PDP, we are not taking this name. So that will have been the end of the matter. So nobody will go to court.
So wind down now. Could you tell us who, well, when he says that the resident electoral commissioners, maybe you should explain that. What is their position in INEC? Are they members of the commission or what?
This argument is so irrelevant and diversionary. There are 2 sets of public officers in INEC. 2, not 3. The chairman, the national commissioners, and the recs appointed by the president. And their
That's 3.
appointment, no, I'm just saying, they all belong to one group.
Oh, I see.
Their names are sent to the National Assembly, to the Senate, and they are confirmed. They are appointed by the president. The second group of public officers in INEC are officers of INEC, appointed by INEC. So you can't say, oh, Rex, you didn't appoint Rex, so they are not your agents, they are not your boys and girls, as we are being told now. There should be no dichotomy between the national commissioners and the Rex, because the Rex have statutory duties under the Constitution and the Electoral Act. For instance, the Rex shall collect all election materials from Abuja and distribute them and monitor the elections in their state. They are in charge of all elections conducted in their state, including presidential election. National electoral commissioners are not in charge in the states. And they cannot be in charge in the state. So when you now say, oh, they are not members of INEC, who are the members of INEC? Are they members of NNPC?
Does his position lend
or members of Channel Television?
Well, we need to
They're members of INEC.
We thank you very much indeed for your time and perspective this morning. Mr. Falana is a senior advocate of Nigeria. Well, we will be back in a moment, but we'll be flipping to Abuja and take it from there. Don't go away.
Oh, yes, we're talking about sanitizing the civil service. And I know that that is one conversation that a number of people, sometimes don't know which way it will swing. But we have somebody who is extremely knowledgeable about what is happening in the civil service, how we can get it to be efficient, and how we can get it to deliver the service that Nigerians are in dire need of. We have with us this morning Mr. Dasuki Arabi, who is the Director General of the Bureau of Public Service Reforms. You're welcome to our studios this morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, Nigerians.
The BPSR is a pretty interesting organization. When you think about the history of the organization, why it was founded, and the journey so far. From your own rating, if you were to look at the purpose for founding the BPSR, the Bureau of Public Service Reforms, and where our civil service currently still is, especially the perception of many Nigerians, I don't know if there's been any research done in recent times to see how Nigerians are perceiving their civil service. But generally, if you were to speak about the civil service, I'm sure a lot of people will still not be happy with their civil service. If you were to look at why it was started and where we currently are at, how would you say that the BPSR has performed so far?
Well, thank you very much for this interesting question. I will not be selfish to assess myself or our organization. But currently we're running a survey in collaboration with the NESG and AIG Group to have a feel of the citizens on what they think are the successes and the challenges around public service reforms in Nigeria. So I'll be able to share that information with you when the results are released.
That is very interesting, that there is some research going on in that regard.
Yes. Currently that research is going on. And apart from that, we do impact assessments and perception surveys after every 3 months to assess reform initiatives of government and get the feelings of Nigerians on the success or failures of those reform initiatives. Now, but if you ask me what is my thinking around our performance and public service reforms generally, I think we have done wonderfully well.
Wonderfully well?
Yes. If you look at the public service 25 years ago and what we have today, we have moved more than 70%. We are running a program under a book that we call the National Strategy on Public Service Reforms. This is the coordinating mechanism for all the work that we are doing around public service reforms in Nigeria from inception of the Bureau of Public Service Reforms. And this document has 4 pillars that is looking at the socio-economic environment, the public financial management, and the civil service transformation. If you look at these pillars, Pillar 3, in 2007 when we started SPSR, said we should digitalize public financial management 100%. This we have succeeded done because we have introduced IPPIS, we have introduced GIFMIS, we have introduced TSA, we have introduced BVN, we have produced online auditing, open portal.
And all of
with this,
yeah,
we have transformed management of government resources from paper to paperless. So we're 100%.
So in fairness, I do know that a number of government agencies, I mean, especially the ones that deal directly with the citizenry, for instance, the Federal Road Safety Commission, which does our driver's license, NIMC, we saw the drive by NIMC in recent times to also improve the national ID card system and the will I say, the synchronization with other agencies of government that also collect this data and will need this data. I'm trying to remember another one now,
Immigration Service.
Immigration Service, exactly, which I also know needs to harmonize. If you go and collect your passport now, especially the new passport, they would actually ask you for your NIN, and they will try to harmonize all of this information. So we see some improvement in that regard. But the process is still not straightforward. So if you ask the average Nigerian now, how do you go about getting, say, for instance, a driver's license, they still believe that you need to know somebody inside for your process to be seamless. If you ask about the passport, for instance, where we've also seen some problems, some people also still believe that you need to pay a bribe or, you know, be influential or know somebody on the inside for your passport to come out. So this is not without prejudice. I mean, this is without prejudice to the reforms that you are trying to carry out. But it does look like there's still lots of obstacles in the way for Nigerians to actually appreciate what is going on with the reform system.
Well, thank you very much. The only thing constant in life is change. And reform doesn't have a timeline. It is something that continuously happens. What we have done is to provide the enablers for this transformation. The first thing we did was to do a study around key agencies of government collecting data, Allay Revenue, NIMC, Immigration Service, and Federal Road Safety Corps. At the end of the day, we recommended to government that we should have a national database, which has been accepted, and NIMC became the National Data Manager and Center of Nigeria. An ecosystem has been developed around data management, capturing, and provision of information. Now, if you look at that, this is an initiative that has been accepted by government, it has been introduced, and it's working.
And it's been accepted by the people as well,
yes,
which is very
yes.
important.
Now, part of the strategy that we're driving and implementing is a cultural reorientation to make people to understand that these changes are real. As providers of service, you must give yourself 100% to the citizen. And all the bottlenecks around these issues, just as you've said, government and BPSR and other agencies are fighting them on continuous basis. I applied for renewal of my passport. I didn't call anybody to tell him I'm Director General of BPSR. I applied the way it's supposed to be applied, and I received a call I should come for capturing, and I did. And after 1 week, somebody called me and said my passport was ready.
Are you sure she didn't have true color? I'm just
this is exactly what happened. So we have started moving. We are moving. I think we'll be there. The civil service or public services in United Kingdom.
Did you say 1 week?
Yes.
In fairness, I mean...
now, let me come.
Yes.
The civil service in United Kingdom and other parts of the world, it took them more than 50 to 100 years to transform to where they are. Now, if you look at the process of renewing and obtaining passports and driver's license 20 years ago and what we have today, it will be fair to us to say we have improved. But it will be fair to Nigerians to say, yes, there are challenges, there are still problems, but we're assuring them that we'll take them where they want to be.
Well, I want to believe that they will quickly work on that, and I will not be relying on how long it took the United Kingdom. Because some people will say that, I mean, for those people, mistakes had to be made, technology had to evolve, and they had to be moving with the times. But we have the advantage to be able to learn from their mistakes and quickly leapfrog to where it is that we want to. That notwithstanding, for a number of people, when it comes to transparency and accountability in ministries, departments, and agencies, it's another kettle of fish. They believe that, you know, I do not. I know that a number of polls have been done in terms of which government agencies are perceived to be the most corrupt, and oftentimes you see right there, our police comes, you know, up front. Our courts are also ranking, you know, really high up there, and there have been questions as to what, because part of the reforms that people will be seeking is, you know, reducing, maybe not just corruption, but increasing transparency and accountability on the part of government agencies. What would you say that the BPSR is doing in this regard?
Well, thank you very much. We have done quite a lot to improve transparency and accountability in delivering public service to Nigerians. Nigeria as a nation have signed onto a lot of commitments. OGP, the UNCAC, and others. These are international commitments by nations to fight corruption, improve transparency, and ensure accountability. The reforms we are driving, which are centered around digitalizing our processes, are looking at how to reduce man-to-man contact and open the systems, the system 100%, so that at a distance, somebody will be able to assess and see what will happen. The introduction of GFMIS is one of them, where we used to write vouchers, we move with files around. It takes 2, 3, 5, 6 months to make payments. Now with the touch of a button, that is done. As the ministry is making payment or the agency is making payment, Ministry of Finance, Office of Accountant General are online watching what is happening around
this process is seamless. Let me give you the instance of employment. I know that, you know, we've seen strikes by our doctors, our medical doctors, and we've also, right now, we've seen the controversy that the IPIS system is causing with ASU and how they're saying that their salaries are mutilated as a result of being put on this system. For a number of people, they talk about how when civil servants are employed, it takes forever for them to be regularized by this, by IPIS, so to speak, for them to be on the system. We've also heard complaints from doctors who need to be hired urgently in many of our state institutions or the federal government institutions that are situated in states and not being hired as and when due, or maybe they are hired, but to integrate them into the system is usually, you know, takes longer than usual, and maybe hospitals have to find ways around that. As a result, there are hiccups. So, and hiccups that have, you know, implications such as strikes. Are we really working on smoothening this and making sure that these systems are running efficiently?
Well, you know, we started the implementation.
Are you aware of these hiccups? I want to.
No, I'm not aware of them.
You're not aware of them?
No, I'm not aware.
You've not heard of the complaints from doctors about, you know, not being on the GFMIS system, or how long it takes civil servants to be registered on IPIS?
Now, we started IPPIS with 6 pilot MDAs. Because it's a process of transformation that is very, very delicate. To ensure success and fight the issues and the problems that we were facing before, we needed to take our time to do that. From 6, we went to 10. We covered all the MDAs. Then all of a sudden, there's this urge, it must cover everywhere. Now, the process of capturing them and documenting them takes time because it's still new within the service. So there are some problems and challenges along the line. But we are hopeful that in the next 2 to 3 years, the moment you are recruited, you are documented, you automatically be on IPPIS. And that is the reason why we are encouraging the ecosystem that we have developed. Because if I'm looking for your data now as a new staff on federal employed by federal government, you have your NIN. Most of the data that I need is there. So it's just to link you up with NIN, and the process of documentation is reduced. And along the line, there have been a lot of attempts to break the process for some selfish reasons, to ensure safety, accuracy of the data. Sometimes it takes a longer period to document new officers. Now, on the issue of deduction of salaries of something, there are problems in the process of capturing. Some did not give their correct data, the correct information was not provided. Don't forget that IPPIS is an IT platform, a garbage in, garbage out. So if you did not provide the correct information, the correct data, you give rubbish, rubbish will be collected, and that is what will come out.
Have you listened to the conversation that ASU has been? Have you heard some of their complaints about IPIS?
Yes, we have had that, and I'm assuring you that government is doing quite a lot to address some of the challenges and the problems. Not only ASU, the entire system is encountering.
So you've heard some of the complaints
yes,
as well?
Yes, we've had some of them. We've had some of them, but we have not. I'm not really convinced that some of these complaints are really genuine. That a person that is supposed to earn 20,000 is paid 500 naira a month. I can't imagine how IPPIs would do that. But if in the process of capturing...
Is the BPSR using IPIS?
Yes. All MDAs of government are on IPIS.
Have you heard complaints from within your own members of staff?
No. Not a single complaint.
So it's working very well?
Yes. If you ask me to rate IPPIs, I'll rate IPPIs 99% of 100.
Okay, well, let's take a look at some of the... I mean, you talked about TSA as well. They have been... I think it was the report of the Auditor General, which continues to look at how the MDAs are faring. And we understand that in the 2018 report, which another organization has taken a look at, there have been failure in remittances to the TSA, and it would seem that it is increasing in progression. So whilst a number of other areas are recording improvements, it would seem that remittances to the TSA is where quite a number of ministries, departments, and agencies are failing. I don't know if you've seen this and if you have an idea of why this is so.
Well, we have had this discussion, especially with the civil society groups that we've been working with and discussing the Auditor General's report. I want Nigerians, or I want you to understand one or two things. A ministry is allocated funds or releases are made. The funds are utilized in terms of advances for programs, for projects. And if the audit team comes before the conclusion or completion of the project, what they will see are those advances. And if they don't come back to check whether they have retired those advances, the project has been concluded, then it will be assumed those are not accounted and there are problems and issues there. What we have done is to set up a working team, working with the civil society groups, the ACCA, Association of Certified Chartered Accountants, and ICANN and others, to see how we can improve on the capacity of public servants working around this. But when you look at TSA, the essence of introducing TSA is, number one, to have a one basket of government revenue. And that gives government the ability to see at every point in time how much has come to us and how much have we paid out and who are the beneficiaries of this. Secondly, for government to reduce bank charges that they pay or ministries pay as a result of maintaining accounts with commercial banks. Now, if we look at that, the spirit behind TSA, we have succeeded. But just as I said, new things come, they come with their problems. Let me give you an example. When we did the monetization program, a lot of staff working with the media around Area 11 in Abuja became landlords. And it was easy for them to work from their house to NTA headquarters to Radio Nigeria and cast their news and come back home at any time. Now it has taken time. Most of them are out of the system. We have new officers and there are no accommodations very close to their place to make their work comfortable. That means we need to revisit the monetization policy and see what else can we come up with. And that's why I told you from the beginning that every 3, 4, 5 months we do impact assessment of the reform initiatives that we have done, to hear from the people, to hear from the implementers, the operators. What are the issues, what are the problems? And policy briefs are developed on this, guiding government and the implementers on what we need to do to address some of these challenges and problems.
Let me flip this conversation to Lagos. Ladies and gentlemen.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. You know, the conversation around the public service is really important, something that touches at the heart of, in fact, this very show. Because we talk about, you know, governance, corporate governance, ensuring that our civil service is effective, efficient, because essentially the success of any nation rises and falls on that. And, you know, IPIS, which you talked about, is quite interesting because that's at the center of at least the agitations by the Academic Staff Union of Universities. So when you say that IPIS has worked very well, I imagine that the public lecturers, who are public servants, by the way, will beg to disagree because for them, IPIS is not the way, UTAS is the way. And they have said it time and again that UTAS is homegrown. We should employ UTAS, that it captures at least the context of the work they do. So I wonder how that conversation is going, at least at your level, regarding IPIS and UTAS.
Well, thank you very much. At the point of creating IPPIS, there were lots of discussions and conversations between us and Nigerian citizens, most especially people that are supposed to be beneficiaries of IPPIS. And we looked at best practices in the world as at that time, because IPPIS is not only utilized in Nigeria. Most countries, advanced countries in the world, are using IPPIS. What we did was to domesticate IPPIS, capture our peculiarities, the different segments of government officers that will be captured on IPPIS. What was the spirit behind introducing IPPIS? To have a one-stop shop where you can look at a point and say, we have 2 million public servants working for Nigeria. We have 2 million of them on the payroll, and at the end of every month, we pay so amount of money. So for the purpose of control, monitoring, I think we have succeeded 100% in doing that. But just as I was discussing with my host, there are a lot of issues and problems with new innovations. While I did not spend time to look at the proposal of ASU, my think and my point is ASU should come back to the drawing table and discuss what are the issues and problems around IPPIS and what they think government needs to pick from their own proposed software. Then we add to that. But if we don't come to the drawing table, sit down and address ourselves around this, so we'll just be looking at what people call policy somersault. Today they don't like this. Tomorrow somebody will come and say he doesn't like the pension reforms, that he should be exempted out of pension reforms, a lot of issues. So I want ASU to understand, and our listeners, that whatever we are doing in terms of reforms is to streamline our processes, improve governance, make life easy for the citizens of the country, and in a way, ensuring transparency and accountability. So I will encourage them to continue to work and discuss with government. And I know at the end of the day, we'll be able to reach some consensus and address our challenges. If IPPIS is able to handle the medical field, that is in terms of doctors. If you look at an average hospital, you have nurses, you have doctors, you have anesthetists, you have cleaners, you have all sorts of workers in that place. If that has been addressed and they've been captured very well, I think ASU's problem will be managed.
Speaking of concerns and ASU working with government, you know, ASU has described the IPPIS as a recipe for monumental fraud and in fact challenged government to subject IPPIS to a public integrity test. And it's a surprise that you say that IPPIS has passed the test by 99%. So would you be following up with ASU's call for government to subject IPPIS to, you know, that public integrity test. And these are some of the concerns about ASU, about IPPIS. They said it doesn't capture remuneration of staff, their sabbatical, their external examiners, their earned academic allowances, you know, and all of that. So would you please speak to some of these concerns?
Well, that is their own point of view. As far as we're concerned, being the initiators of IPPIS, we're happy, we're satisfied with what we have done. Now, as I told my host here, in the process of capturing, if you did not give the correct information, you'll be captured as level 10 instead of level 12. You'll be captured as level 9 instead of level 10. So I think these are the backbone of some of the challenges and the issues and the problems we have. But it's a software that has been designed, and it can always be amended to capture new innovations, increase the size of the staff that are there, create new cadre, and many others. Let me give you an example. We didn't have a planning cadre, a planning officer cadre in the public service. That has been created, and if they are going to be paid their salaries, it comes with their title, planning cadre officers, with all their entitlements. So why not ASU members? You know, and I want to remind and inform Nigerians that not only that it has passed the test, every day the central agencies working around IPPIS are checking the software, checking the system, checking the process to make sure it is working.
All right, let me read this to you.
We understand their problems and their challenges.
Okay, I'd like you to just speak to this.
Yes, so...
Just a minute, pardon me. This was published this year. It says the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation picked holes in the operationalization of the Integrated Personnel and Payroll Information System, IPIS, and GIFMIS. They say they were ineffective and was robbing the federal government of billions of naira annually. Now, this report showed that as of November 2020, more than 14 years after the rollout of IPIS, over 3.96 billion naira was paid to the two vendors between 2012 and 2018 without the system fully operational as designed in all the federal MDAs nationwide. It's a detailed report published. It took account into what has transpired and what is currently going on. Is this part of what you say you're happy with?
Well, I cannot be happy with problems that have emanated out of our initiative. And nobody will be happy if you have a child and the child is going wayward. As a father, you have a child that is showing sign of going wayward, you bring him back and address some of these problems. And we have looked at that. BPSR and the key agencies of government concerned are looking at this, some of these problems, some of these issues to see how we can address them. Now, government has launched an e-government master plan. And part of that is, part of what we are planning to do is to see that whatever software, whatever program we are running, it's indigenous, created, written by us, and managed by us. So going forward, some of these problems are paying consultants, for software engineers to manage our softwares will be off the radar.
Now, for the people who are still doubting, I mean, about this passport, because you talked about how it took you did you say 1 week to get your own international passport?
Yes.
By following the process. The people who are saying it took them 2 months. I mean, even on the average, for the person who I know, I mean, and I don't know whether she was an anonymous person, she went on Twitter and she was saying, oh, guess what? I just did my passport. I didn't even know anybody there. She said it took her 6 weeks, and she went on, she proceeded to tell Nigerians just how to get your passport. A number of people still doubted her. You know, they still, you know, put posts saying, look, they doubt this very strongly. But we have people who... do we have any mails? Yes, we can see lots of feedback here. This first tweet is from Dr. Ikwemusa. He says, an integrated management system for the civil service is a fantastic idea. This will help improve information flow, internal controls, and performance management.
We'll take a look at this next one from Ibrahim Mashoud, saying the issue of insecurity in the land has become so cancerous to the extent it's now ubiquitous. As it is now, the government alone cannot get it exterminated. Our traditional rulers should also wake up to the call for a peaceful existence, says.
Well, Ambassador Uchendu is more concerned about the impeachment matter, and he says the impeachment notice and ultimatum is belated, but still needs to be activated due to election 2023 coming up. We're at the brink of Sri Lanka's situation, and if not taken seriously, well, it didn't land there.
Well, for Terry, all the senators should go on their 6 weeks holiday. I don't think we'll still have a country by the time they return. They, the political class, will also face what the common man has been facing.
Pretty strong words, but what do we say? It's your view and it's valid. Thank you so much for writing in, for being a part of the program this morning. I'm Maokwe Yusuf.
I'm Kayode Okikele.
I'm Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
And I am Chamberlain also. Goodbye.